And Ray Manzarek just randomly said, you know, my wife Dorothy and I saw this old hotel downtown the other day. It said Morrison Hotel. We went, wow, that sounds great. And we went right down and looked at it. And a week later, we brought the band back.
Henry Diltz, welcome to Life in Six Strings. How's everything going?
Just fine. Thank you very much, Kylie. We're doing very well here in LA.
Yeah, that's very nice. Now, we were having a bit of a chat before the show just started, and then we were talking about my journey at the moment with learning how to play. But you were saying that obviously you used to be a banjo player, or do you still play actually?
Yes. Well, I do. I mean, I was my living for about 5 years in the early 60s. I was in a group called the Modern Folk Quartet.
Yes.
And I played the 5-string banjo. And we were a harmony group. We sang 4-part harmony, like the Four Freshmen.
So then, you know, it was a chance meeting with the Monkees that kind of led you on this other path to becoming a photographer. And you shot some incredible moments in music history. I mean, in your opinion, I would love to know what you think has been like the greatest moment that you've shot.
Oh my word. Well,
to go straight in there.
Well, I've gotten to see a great deal of good music, and I've gotten to go on the road with a lot of groups. I mean, starting with the Monkees, I went on the road with the Monkees in '67 on their summer tour.
Yeah.
I went all over the world with David Cassidy when he was just out of the Partridge Family, and he was a teen heartthrob, you know, and I traveled all over. I went to England 3 or 4 times with him, and Japan, and, you know, Sweden and Australia, New Zealand, all over.
How old were you at this time?
I was in my late 20s by that time.
I mean, what an incredible thing to do then. Like, you know, because traveling wasn't that free, was it? You know, back in the 60s. So, I mean, that's just, that must have been something else.
Yeah, fun to see the world. I mean, I am very interested in people. I'm an observer type. I like to watch people. I'm curious. So, I do well being documenting, you know, and being what they call the fly on the wall, you know, and I would just hang out and just watch what happened and take photos of it as it really happened. I wasn't a studio photographer with lights and a backdrop or any of that. I just photographed, you know, what I saw. And there was a need for that. And then I you know, one of the high points was going on the road with the Eagles a number of times. They were so much fun to travel with. They were so funny and so kind of clever, and it was just a lark, you know, an adventure.
So who was in the band when you were with the Eagles?
Well, it was the original ones: Glenn Frey, Don Henley, Bernie Ledden, and Randy Meisner.
Wow, okay.
And then later, I went on the road when Joe Walsh was in the group and Timothy Schmidt. Yeah, I went in the 80s. I went for a long time on the road with them. So that was all good. But when you ask about what were the high points, and, you know, I always have to say Paul McCartney, because he was a Beatle, you know, and the Beatles they're the Mozart of our times, you know. And I mean, I always say the reason these people become famous is because they're very clever. They're exceptional people. And therefore, it's really fun to hang out with them, you know, because they're smart and they're funny and they're outgoing and they're exceptional sort of human beings. And it's really fun to observe them, you know. And I always say having a camera is like having a passport into people's lives. Because, like, I went and spent a week in the Virgin Islands floating on these boats on Watermelon Bay with the McCartneys and Wings while they recorded London Town.
Wow.
And I mean, why would I be there for a whole week, spending a whole week on the boats, you know, with the McCartneys? And gosh, we had so much fun swimming in the afternoon, you know. And then I also went on the road with, well, it was like the Rolling Stones, but it was without Mick Jagger. They were called the New Barbarians, and it was Ron Wood's solo album.
Yeah.
And the record company said, well, now you have to go on the road to promote your album, so you have to get a group together. So he got Keith Richards, who wasn't doing anything at the time. It was between Rolling Stone tours. And they got Stanley Clarke, famous jazz bass player, and Ian McLagan on the keyboard. It was a great group. Bobby Keys on the saxophone. So it was like the Rolling Stones without the boss. So, without Mick.
They could have more fun.
They had more fun, and they did. And I was 3 weeks on the road with them. Every day on the plane, in the hotel rooms, in the limos, backstage. And gosh, that was a high point.
It's not like that anymore, is it? I don't think.
Well, at the moment, nobody's touring. Yeah. It has changed. Of course, it's changed from the beginning. There didn't used to be a lot of photographers. I mean, I remember I shot the Doors concert at the Hollywood Bowl in '68, and I was the only photographer there in front of the stage shooting. I mean, nowadays, can you imagine if Jim Morrison was up on stage, there'd be 500 photographers,
And obviously your one of your claim to fame, shall we call it, is shooting the cover album for the Morrison Hotel, which is what your gallery is named, the Morrison Hotel Gallery as well.
That is correct.
Tell me about that. You've probably talked about it before, but how that came about, the album.
Yeah. Well, I started taking photos of all my friends up in Laurel Canyon, where I lived as a musician. And all my friends were musicians: David Crosby, Neil Young, Mama Cass, Stephen Stills. They were all my fellow musicians. And I would photograph them just kind of as a hobby. And then they would start saying, well, that's a nice shot. We could use that for something. And then I met a guy who was a graphic artist, and we started doing album covers. And we did about 200 of them, I think, in about a 8-year period. And let me see. Well, we did the Crosby, Stills, Nash album cover where they're sitting on a couch by an old house.
I love that story. And
yeah.
They were in the wrong order, and then you went back the next day to go and reshoot it, and then the house had been knocked down. Yeah.
That's right. They were in the wrong order. And when we went back, the house was all knocked down, bulldozed down. Yeah. But that album was a lovely album. And I think the Doors saw that, because right after that came out, they called us and said, we'd like you to do our album cover. So my partner Gary and I went to their office, and Jim and Ray Manzarek were there. We said, okay, do you have a title? And they said, no. And we said, well, do you have an idea of what you want on the cover? No, that's why we called you guys. And then we were kind of scratching our heads and thinking, okay, what are we going to do here? And Ray Manzarek just randomly said, my wife Dorothy and I saw this old hotel downtown the other day. It said Morrison Hotel. We went, wow, that sounds great. And we went right down and looked at it. And a week later, we brought the band back to shoot in this old funky old, hotel for winos to sleep it off, The rooms were $2.50, right? That's about £1.50.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we went down there and we walked in and told the guy behind the desk we were just going to shoot a few pictures in the lobby. And he freaked out. He said, no, you can't, because a slumlord owned that hotel. And he was like, I guess he was very mean and cranky. And so everybody was afraid of him. And they said, no, you can't shoot anything in here. So I said, well, we'll go outside and we'll stand in front of the window, because we're on the sidewalk. They can't stop us. And as we went to do that, I noticed through the window, a light went on back in the lobby. And I looked it through the window. I said, look, that's the elevator light. And look, the guy has left the desk. There's nobody in there now. So quick, run in there, you guys. And they ran it. That album cover took 5 minutes.
Wow. Oh my God. And it's such an iconic album cover as well.
And you know what else? So 5 minutes, one roll of film, they jumped out, nobody saw us. And then Jim, it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Jim said, let's go get a drink. And we thought, okay, fair enough. We drove a few blocks to what they called Skid Row, where it was all bars and pawn shops. And we didn't know where to stop. There were so many bars, but out the windshield of the Volkswagen van that we were in, the Doors band van,
Yeah.
somebody said, look, on the next corner, Hard Rock Cafe. We said, well, you know, that's where we'll go and have our beer. And we went in there, and Jim loved talking to the old guys in there, you know, the old winos who spent the whole day in there. And he would buy them a beer, and they would tell him their life story. Like, you know, I left home at 16 and joined the Merchant Marines.
Oh.
And he, you know, he was a very quiet observer type. He was a poet. So
Yeah.
he would sit quietly and nod his head and, you know, listen to them talk. And we had a great time. Well, here's the upshot of that. We had a picture on the back of the Morrison Hotel album. On the back was a picture of that bar. It said Hard Rock Cafe. And that bar had been there from the 30s. So hard rock meant mining, or like rock in a hard place, right? So as soon as the album came out, they got a call from London, and a voice on the phone said, would you mind if we use that name? We're starting a cafe here in London.
No.
And they said, yeah, go ahead. And that was how they got the name, the Hard Rock Cafe.
I didn't even know Hard Rock Cafe in England was English. I just assumed it was American.
Well, I think it was one American guy and one English guy, I believe, who started it. But it started in London.
Story. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. Okay, so that's thanks to the Morrison album cover and you shooting it. That's incredible.
Yeah. And then years later, when you know, friends of mine said, Henry, we should get a little gallery and sell your pictures in a gallery. And so we did that in New York, and we had that picture in the window one day, a big blow up of the Morrison Hotel. And I was across the street looking at our window with my partner, Peter, and I said, Peter, look at that lovely lettering on that photograph, you know, and now look at our window. We have nothing. We didn't have a name on our gallery. And he said, you know, I'm going to get a painter to put Morrison Hotel on our window just to attract, you know, attention. Yeah. And then, so it was like an accident kind of, you know, and then that became the name. But Morrison Hotel is a good name for a gallery because, you know, it doesn't, I mean, so many galleries say, you know, rock gallery, rock and roll, you know, and I, you know, sure, I shot rock and roll, but I mean, there's Joni Mitchell and James Taylor, and I mean, is that rock and roll? That's kind of singer-songwriter, you know.
Yeah, it's more in the folky vein, isn't it?
Kind of folk rock.
Yeah. And then actually, you mentioned it, the whole Laurel Canyon scene, which you captured, didn't you? Because you were living up there, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, I mean, if you think about that, they were the sort of counterculture and this incredible scene that kind of, for some reason, really attracted all these arty types. I mean, when you were there in the midst of it all, did you feel like you were part of something exciting?
Yes, you know, well, it was the whole, you know, peace and love, brotherhood. We wore love beads, you know, and we grew our hair long because the Beatles had long hair, you know. And
the Beatles were a great influence on that.
Well, they were a great influence, especially on singer-songwriters, because, you know, I always say in folk music, you don't write folk songs. You find 100-year-old songs to sing. Well, when the Beatles started out, they didn't write songs either, right? They sang Blue Suede Shoes and Roll Over Beethoven. But then they started writing, you know, She Loves You, yeah. I mean, just starting out as songwriters. And when they played Ed Sullivan in this country in '64, all of the folk groups saw them on TV and said, wow, look at the fun they're having, you know. She loves you, yeah. And we all, because we were in the entertainment business, of course, and we said, that's the kind of music we want to play. So all the folk groups went electric and got drummers. And then you had folk rock. And then you had the Byrds and the Buffalo Springfield. And a lot of that came from the influence of the Beatles. And also we all grew our hair long because that looked cool, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we got influences from different places, you know, but it was a kind of a flowering, a kind of a Renaissance time. And we were a generation that said, peace and love, you know, quit killing people. Let's quit having wars and let's love each other. And brotherhood, that's the main thing. And at the time, sure, it was exciting. You know, it was what we really felt in our hearts. But we didn't see it as a historical thing, you know. 50 years later, you look back and say, yes, that was an amazing time.
Yeah.
But at the time, life was good. It was exciting every day. That's all, but it was everyday stuff,
Yeah. And there's a picture that you took that just blows my mind. Because the thing is, you see a film, but I think that a picture tells so much more than the moving image. I just think that you just look at a picture and you just wonder what's going on here and what was said and behind the scenes and everything else. I just love it. And there's a picture of Eric Clapton, Joni Mitchell, and then you have David Crosby sitting there as well. And you just see the intensity in Clapton. He's like looking at Joni going, what is this? Who is this creature that's playing this guitar like I've never seen before? And then Crosby's like, yeah. But I mean, what really was going on? That's my interpretation, but you were there and you captured it.
Yeah. Well, that was Mama Cass's house. And Mama Cass, we called her the Gertrude Stein of Laurel Canyon because she was always getting people together. And she would play. She was playing on a TV show with the Mamas and Papas, and there was a young English group that just came over. And oh my goodness, sorry,
that's all right.
Little sound effect.
Yeah.
And she met Cream. Cream was playing on the. All right, come on.
He's not in.
Yeah, right. I can't turn it off. Stop.
There we go.
Cream was playing on the show, and she met Eric Clapton, who was very shy, very quiet, and he didn't know anybody. It was their first time over to the U.S. And so she said, well, look, come up to my house tomorrow, and I'll have some friends over, and we'll have a picnic in the backyard. So he came over, and she invited David Crosby, and some other people were there, but David had brought his newfound protege, Joni Mitchell. And they were just recording her first album. Yeah. It wasn't out yet. The world had not heard of her. And so she sat there under the trees on the lawn and David would say, play us a song, Joni. And she played her whole album. And so, but the thing is, she tuned her guitar to a tuning, kind of a folk thing, And instead of playing a chord, like you're learning C and G and D, no, she didn't. She tuned it to a chord, and then she would just lay her finger up and down over the fretboard. She didn't have to play those chords. Well, the great blues player, Eric Clapton, had never seen that. He'd never seen that before. So he's sitting there. He just stared at her, for 40 minutes. Like I always say, he was gobsmacked.
It was. You can see it in that picture.
Yeah.
You really captured a moment there. And I've never seen Clapton look like that before.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of being a kind of a candid documentary photographer, right? I couldn't have set that up, that just happened. And I was there with my camera, and they didn't even see me take the picture. David did, because he was looking at me, but that's the beauty of watching these people and waiting for those great moments, I mean, if I'm out on the road with a group and they're in the dressing room, I mean, it doesn't, I wait very quietly, and I wait until some moment happens where they all laugh at the same time, and then I go click and I take that picture. I wait until some energy or something interesting is happening, and then I take the picture.
Do you think that they were relaxed around you because you were a musician, or do you think that it was, I mean, I guess you were mates with them though, weren't you? And I guess that was it. So it wasn't like, the photographers here. It was just like, our mates here. Is that kind of why you think? Exactly right.
Yeah, they knew me as a musician. I mean, they barely noticed the camera. And also, I didn't come on strong. I didn't put it in their faces, I did it subtly. And also, very often, it wasn't an assignment, it wasn't the record company or a magazine saying, go here at 3:00 and take a photo of this group. No, I was there all afternoon just hanging out with my friends. And then, of course, if I'm on the road, then I'm there as a professional. But once again, I'm just part of the group, I'm part of everybody. I try to blend in. I don't try to be the photographer,
No. No, that's
That's it.
great. Right.
That's my
That's good.
secret.
Yeah. What's I mean, that's my favorite. One of my favorite shots of yours is that
Mm.
Clapton one.
Hmm.
But what's your favorite shot that you've taken?
Oh boy, that's always very hard,
Yeah, I
because
can imagine.
as I always say, every shot I've ever taken is sort of a memory. It's something I experienced. It's like they're all my babies, not my babies, but it's all my life. Each shot reminds me of a time and a place and a situation and an adventure that I was on. So
Okay. So maybe it's better to ask, what is there a picture or something that you've created that you're most proud of?
well, I really like the Crosby, Stills, Nash on the couch. That was my first big album cover, and I really like that one. But once again, the McCartneys, that was really fun. I mean, when we did the Eagles' first album cover, we went out to the desert, Joshua Tree, and we spent the night on top of a mountain. And we made peyote tea from peyote buttons, psychedelic. And that was a fun adventure. I see them all as adventures. So which adventure was the most fun, or which picture? I'll tell you a picture I love is Sweet Baby James. And it's partly the album cover, but inside the album was a pullout, double album size, and it was a black and white picture of him kind of leaning. He was leaning on a post, and that just framed so nicely. That one, I really love that picture a lot.